From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, I am Leo Magpayo and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has urged stronger and more timely implementation of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP to enhance regional integration amid growing global economic and trade uncertainties. Speaking at the 5th RCEP Summit in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia on Monday, President Marcos emphasized the importance of expediting the accession process, calling on member states to move forward without delay. The RCEP agreement, which came into force between 2022 and 2023, includes Australia, Brunei, Cambodia, China, Japan, Laos, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, South Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Although India withdrew from negotiations in 2019, the summit's leaders reaffirmed that India remains welcome to begin accession talks at any time, as stated in a previously endorsed declaration. President Marcos highlighted RCEP's role as the world's largest free trade agreement, describing it as a vital framework for ensuring stability and predictability in trade and investment across the region. During the summit, leaders reiterated their commitment to an open, inclusive, and rules-based multilateral trading system. In their joint statement, they directed ministers to close implementation gaps, especially for less developed economies, and to address long-term challenges such as climate change, digital transformation, and supply chain resilience. The summit also marked the first high-level leaders meeting since the RCEP agreement took effect, with parties agreeing to conduct a general review of the deal in 2027 and continue exploring ways to accelerate its full implementation.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday strongly objected to China's recent declaration of a national nature reserve in the Scarborough Shoal, also known as Bajo de Masinloc, during the 20th East Asia Summit or EAS in Malaysia. The Philippine president asserted that the shoal is a long-standing and integral part of the Philippines, over which the country exercises full sovereignty and jurisdiction. The president emphasized that only the Philippines has the authority to designate environmental protection areas within its maritime zones. President Marcos condemned China's move as a violation of Philippine sovereignty, a threat to the traditional fishing rights of Filipino fisherfolk, and a breach of international law, particularly the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and the 2016 South China Sea arbitration ruling. Despite these tensions, President Marcos reaffirmed the Philippines' commitment to defending its rights while constructively engaging with other claimant states. The EAS, held alongside the 47th Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN Summit in Malaysia, brought together leaders from ASEAN and key dialogue partners including China, the United States, India, and others. President Marcos highlighted the importance of diplomacy, dialogue, and adherence to international law in addressing regional disputes and preventing conflict. He called for sincere efforts toward de-escalation and constructive diplomacy amid growing geopolitical challenges. Malaysian Prime Minister and ASEAN Chair Anwar Ibrahim echoed the need for regional solutions, stressing that the South China Sea issue should be resolved within ASEAN and its partners without external imposition. He affirmed that the situation remains under control and urged all parties to uphold international legal principles, especially UNCLOS. Ongoing negotiations between China and ASEAN aim to finalize a Code of Conduct, or COC, to manage tensions in the disputed South China Sea. China, in the meantime, has accused unnamed external forces of undermining peace in the region. Meanwhile, during the ASEAN-India Summit on October 26, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. called for enhanced collaboration between ASEAN and India, emphasizing the importance of upholding the rule of law and resolving maritime disputes peacefully. The President highlighted the critical role of maritime cooperation in maintaining stability and prosperity across the Indo-Pacific region. In his remarks during the dialogue with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, President Marcos underscored the value of deeper ASEAN-India ties, noting India's growing global economic influence and its potential contributions to regional development. The chief executive pointed out that India, through its Act Easy policy, recognizes ASEAN's central role in regional affairs and can be a key partner in addressing shared challenges. President Marcos expressed appreciation for India's steadfast commitment to international law, particularly in maritime governance, and thanked Prime Minister Modi for supporting principles that safeguard the rule of law at sea. Looking ahead to the Philippines' chairmanship of ASEAN next year, President Marcos announced plans to commemorate the ASEAN-India Year of Maritime Cooperation in 2026. President Marcos Jr. said the initiative would include joint maritime exercises aimed at reinforcing freedom of navigation and ensuring safety across Indo-Pacific waters. The Philippine President's message reinforced the need for strategic partnerships grounded in mutual respect, legal frameworks, and a shared vision for regional peace and security.
As Southeast Asia's next-door neighbor, which is set to become the world's fourth largest economy, India has a lot to offer to ASEAN as a region. As a committed dialogue partner that recognizes ASEAN's centrality through its Act East policy, which stresses ASEAN as a core pillar of its engagement, we may also turn our gaze to India for solutions to our common concerns. Foremost, as a maritime and archipelagic nation, I wish to highlight the great importance of the rule of law in our oceans. Both ASEAN and India should see peaceful settlement of disputes and maritime cooperation as essential, as our seas contribute to the peace and prosperity of the entire Indo-Pacific region.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meantime, during the 26th Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN-South Korea Summit, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. expressed optimism about the ongoing negotiations to upgrade the ASEAN-Korea Free Trade Area, or AKFTA. The President described the initiative as a timely step that would help ensure the partnership between ASEAN and South Korea remains dynamic and responsive to the demands of the rapidly evolving global economy. President Marcos also welcomed South Korea's continued commitment to supporting the growth of micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, and startups across the region, recognizing their vital role in driving inclusive economic development. In addition, President Marcos conveyed the Philippines' gratitude for South Korea's efforts to promote cultural exchange and strengthen people-to-people ties, which contribute to deeper regional understanding and cooperation. The chief executive further praised South Korea's active involvement in environmental sustainability initiatives within ASEAN. President Marcos highlighted key collaborative projects such as Clean Air for Sustainable ASEAN or CASA and the ASEAN-Korea Cooperation for Methane Mitigation or AKCMM, which reflect shared goals in addressing climate challenges. Present during the summit was Korean President Lee Jae-myung.
Dateline Malacañang.
At the 13th United States Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. voiced serious concerns over China's increasingly assertive actions in the West Philippine Sea or WPS, particularly its unilateral plan to designate Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal as a nature reserve. While President Marcos did not name China directly, he condemned dangerous maneuvers and coercive actions that disrupt legitimate Philippine operations and endanger lives. The chief executive emphasized that these activities violate international law, notably the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and undermine the 2016 South China Sea Arbitration Award. President Marcos highlighted repeated incidents of harassment by the China Coast Guard, including water cannon attacks on Filipino vessels conducting resupply missions. The president described the establishment of the so-called Huangyan Island National Reserve as a direct affront to Philippine sovereignty and a threat to the traditional fishing rights of Filipino communities, rights protected under UNCLOS and domestic law. Despite rising tensions, President Marcos reaffirmed the Philippines' commitment to peaceful diplomacy and the full implementation of the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. President Marcos stressed the importance of concluding a substantive and legally consistent code of conduct to govern maritime behavior and prevent conflict. Beyond maritime disputes, President Marcos addressed broader regional challenges, including scam hubs, cybercrime, and transnational threats. The president announced the Philippines' upcoming role as co-chair of the 22nd ASEAN Regional Forum, or ARF, intersessional meeting on counter-terrorism and transnational crime, underscoring Manila's proactive stance on regional security. On economic cooperation, President Marcos praised the ASEAN-United States Trade and Investment Facilitation Arrangement, which supports MSMEs, digital economy initiatives, cybersecurity, and sustainability. He emphasized the need for strategic, outcome-driven collaboration amid global uncertainty. President Marcos also welcomed ongoing people-to-people exchanges between ASEAN and the U.S., particularly in education and youth empowerment, as vital to fostering mutual understanding and leadership development. The Philippine president concluded by endorsing the ASEAN-United States Joint Vision Statement, describing it as a strategic framework aligned with ASEAN's long-term goals and the ASEAN Community Vision 2045 aimed at promoting peace, stability, and prosperity across the Indo-Pacific region.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Monday announced that the Philippine government has allocated nearly 1 billion pesos in the proposed 2026 national budget to strengthen healthcare services in underserved areas. Speaking at a press briefing during the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro revealed that 997.71 million pesos has been earmarked for the Doktor Para sa Bayan program under the Department of Budget and Management or DBM's proposed National Expenditure Program. Of the total amount, 909.99 million pesos will be directed to the Commission on Higher Education's Medical Scholarship and Return Service Program, while 87.71 million pesos will support the Department of Health's Pre-Service Scholarship Program. According to a report from Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman, the funding aims to assist 245 medical scholars, 122 medical technology scholars, and 104 pharmacy scholars. The Doktor Para sa Bayan Act, passed in 2020, offers scholarship to eligible medical students enrolled in both public and private institutions. In return, graduates are required to serve in the country's public health system upon passing their licensure exams, helping to address the shortage of healthcare professionals in remote and underserved communities.
Sa layuning mapalakas ang Doktor Para sa Bayan program ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., DBM naglaan ng pondo para sa programa. Bilang tugon sa hangarin ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. na palakasin pa ang Doktor Para sa Bayan program sa susunod na taon, naglaan ang Department of Budget and Management o DBM ng 997.71 million pesos upang masiguro na magkakaroon ng maraming doktor sa mga lugar na kulang sa serbisyong medikal. Sa ulat ni Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman, nasa kabuang 997.71 million pesos ang inilaan ng pamahalaan sa ilalim ng Fiscal Year 2026 National Expenditure Program na sumasakop sa 909.99 million pesos para sa Medical Scholarship and Return Service Program o MSRS ng Commission on Higher Education at 87.71 million pesos para sa Pre-Service Scholarship Program o PSSP ng Department of Health na magbibigay ng suporta sa 245 medical scholars, 122 medical technology scholars, at 104 pharmacy scholars. Ang mahakbang na ito ng Pangulo ay patunay lamang na ang Marcos administration ay nakatuon sa pagpapatibay ng healthcare system sa bansa at upang mabigyan ng atensyong medikal ang lubos na nangangailangan sa anumang sulok ng bansa.
Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang announced Monday that the Philippines is actively negotiating with the United States to secure tariff exemptions for key export products. Speaking at a press briefing during the 47th Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Summit and related meetings in Kuala Lumpur, Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary Claire Castro said, the government is working to protect vital exports such as coconuts and semiconductors. Castro emphasized that these trade matters require deliberate and careful negotiation, noting that they cannot be resolved hastily. The U.S. government has imposed steep tariffs on several countries, including ASEAN members, with some rates reaching up to 40%. Since August 7 this year, Philippine exports to the U.S. have faced a 19% tariff, slightly lower than the original 20% rate announced under the Trump administration. Despite the impact, Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro previously noted that these reciprocal tariffs could serve as a catalyst for ASEAN to strengthen internal trade and cooperation. Ongoing discussions at the summit include efforts to expand intra-ASEAN trade and enhance free trade agreements with dialogue partners such as China. On the sidelines of the summit, U.S. President Donald Trump signed reciprocal trade deals with leaders from Thailand, Malaysia, Cambodia, and Vietnam, signaling continued engagement with the region on economic matters.
meron pa po at patuloy po ang pakikipignegosasyon at may mga issues po kasi na maaari natin sabihin komprehensibo na patungkol po sa mga trade rules and regulations at pati na po yung mga non-tariff measures like yung services and investments. At nandun po kasi yung mga issues patungkol po sa gusto na protektahan ng bansa natin, yung mga agricultural products. At katulad po ng coconuts, pineapple, sugar, cocoa, electronic products. At yan po, ilan po ito sa mga hindi po sa ngayon makakayang i-negotiate ng basta-basta ng Pilipinas. So, nandun pa rin po ang pakikipag-usap para po yung iba mga produkto natin ay hindi naman po maapektuhan.
That was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Monday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has directed the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, to implement a price freeze on basic and prime commodities until the end of the year to ensure price stability during the holiday season. On the sidelines of the 47th Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN Summit and related summits, Presidential Communications Office, or PCO Undersecretary Claire Castro said, the DTI has announced that there will be no price increase on basic and prime commodities until year-end. President Marcos, she said, instructed the DTI to ensure the strict monitoring and implementation of the maximum suggested retail prices, or SRPs, for imported rice and other essential food items. The chief executive also ordered the DTI to continue its coordination with manufacturers to maintain current price levels and prevent unwarranted price hikes. According to Castro, Trade Secretary Maria Cristina Roque assured that all industry stakeholders are working closely with the government to stabilize market prices, particularly during the holiday season.
Alinsunod sa kautusan ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. na hindi magkakaroon ng paggalaw sa mga presyo ng mga bilihin bago ang holiday season, inanunsyo ng Department of Trade and Industry o DTI na walang price increase sa basic at prime commodities sa bansa hanggang sa matapos ang kasalukuyang taon. Bago magtungo sa Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia noong Sabado, pinag-utos din ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. sa DTI na siguraduhin ang striktong monitoring at implementation ng maximum suggested retail price para sa mga imported na bigas, lalo na sa mga presyo ng pagkain. Ipinag-utos din ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. sa ahensya na ipagpatuloy ang monitoring at pakikipag-ugnayan sa mga manufacturer na panatilihin ang presyo ng mga bilihin. Ayon kay DTI Secretary Maria Cristina Roque, lahat ng mga stakeholders ay nakipagtulungan sa pamahalaan para masigurong walang pagtaas sa presyo ng mga bilihin sa mga palengke, lalo ngayong darating na holiday season. Nagtutulungan din ang lahat upang maibigay ang presyo ng naaayon at gusto ng ating mga kababayan.
It was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has accepted the resignation of National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI Director Jaime Santiago, and designated Assistant Director Lito Magno as the agency's officer in charge, or OIC. The announcement was confirmed by Palace Press Officer Claire Castro during a media briefing held in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, on the sidelines of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN Summit. Santiago tendered his resignation in August, citing persistent efforts by unnamed individuals to tarnish his reputation. In his letter, he referred to detractors and those who have a sinister interest in his position as the reason behind his decision to step down. Appointed by President Marcos in June of 2024, Santiago served as NBI chief for over a year. The NBI, which operates under the Department of Justice, is tasked with conducting criminal investigations, leading anti-corruption efforts, and handling high-profile law enforcement cases across the country.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service is live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.